Good morning and welcome to the Lord Selkirk West Kildonan Community Committee for Thursday, September 5th, 2024. My name is Councillor Vivian Santos. I will be the chairperson for today's meeting. We also have other council colleagues, Councillor Debbie Sharma from the Old Kildonan Ward and Councillor Ross Eady from the Menarski Ward. We also have members from the Winnipeg Public Service, Senior Committee Clerk, Ms. Leah Cowan. Our other clerk, Peter Prinsloo, is on a paternity leave for a bit. So thank you, Leah, for coming in and subbing in. We also have our planner from Property and Development, Ms. Semi Jerez. I would like to also acknowledge yes.
We also have Mr. Kevin Bullock.
Oh, yes.
Development.
Thank you, Kevin, for being here. I also want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional territory of Treaty 1 at the homeland of the Red River Métis that we have the privilege of living on. I also want to acknowledge the traditional territory of Indigenous ancestors in Shoal Lake, number 40 First Nation in Treaty 3, which is the primary water source for Winnipeg, together with our neighbors in Treaty 5, where Winnipeg and Manitoba receives electricity from. First off, I'll need a motion to accept the minutes of meeting held on June 25th, 2024 to be taken as read and confirmed. Thank you, Councillor Eady. All those in favor? Aye, and that's carried unanimously. Moving on to delegations, I'm going to go to Leah, if you can start introducing our delegations for us.
So I believe Staff Sergeant Dechen isn't with us today, so we'll move on to Joel Trank from Affinity Architecture, who's here in support of Report 7. And Joel's joining us via Zoom today. Hi, Joel.
Hello, good morning.
You have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
All right, I have to start right away. Good morning, councillors, and thank you for having me. So I'm going to share my screen before we get too far. Let's do this. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it, but then we'll also need you to describe what you're showing us on the screen.
Absolutely, we'll do. Okay, so just as a brief summary of previous, as you may recall, our original plan approval for lot 49 of the Highland Point development on Goodman Drive was laid over until this particular meeting. And the driving concern there was the lack of public parking available to the site. And so what I'm here to present to you is and discuss is more to do with the updates to the site. And to that end, there has not been any updates required to the overall design expression of the buildings themselves. So I won't really touch on those here. And in general, the updates to the site have been fairly minor in terms of design, but they have resulted in, I think, significant improvements to the overall use of the site. So with that out of the way, this site plan represents a significant effort to navigate the zoning bylaw and the needs of the ward, considering factors like demographics, public transit availability, and some boots on the ground feedback in terms of some similar townhouse developments in the area and how those are working out. So what we've done to the site plan, if I'll just go to the old one from the previous submission, you'll notice that our townhouses are arranged around the perimeter of the site with a collection of some in the center. And in our newest updated plan, it's still the same number of townhouses arranged around the perimeter and within the interior. But we have added supplemental
Could you,
parking.
Joel,
Yes,
Can you zoom in on the actual diagram?
absolutely.
That would be helpful on our end. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Let me know if this is,
Much better.
okay, excellent. And so we've added, to address the concerns of the counselor and also to, I think provide a bit more usability that the owners were trying to get out of the site. We've added some supplemental parking, around the site plan, namely a bank of, 4 stalls here, a bank of 5 stalls here, and 1 parallel stall in the center here. And we were able to achieve this more or less within the existing design of our site, which was great. A couple other enhancements we did is we increased the depth of the driveways for some of our corner units where they were impeded slightly by the turning radius for fire truck and garbage truck access. And what we've managed to achieve on these driveways is a full-size parking stall without the need of overhanging the sidewalk or the curb. So the end users will be able to park their vehicles without overhanging the public right of way, which is great. And although they're not technically required for our particular category, the driveways will logically then be used for parking and will kind of contribute to the overall flexibility of the development. So in a nutshell, that's about it. When we did run into a bit of difficulties with trying to add supplemental parking to our particular site, because this type of development is a category 1 parking category, and the supplemental parking addition was sort of pushing us into a category 3 arrangements, which would have been a bit too onerous for the site and would have resulted in some reduction in density, unfortunately. But we did prepare a parking rationale, which we submitted to the zoning department, and to my knowledge, it's still circulating through, and there hasn't been any negative commentary on it. I think we're just awaiting official acceptance of that particular rationale for how the parking intends to be used. But in general, I think the end result will be very usable development for the owners, and they're very excited to. We're very excited to get this project going off the ground. So, if you have any questions or need any clarity, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel, for that. I believe we do have some questions. Councillor Sharma, go ahead.
Thank you, Joel, for your presentation. Just a comment. I think these are very good design changes. I appreciate you working collaboratively with our planning department, with Simi, our planner.
Yes.
And it's really important to have parking here, and supplementary parking that you've added, because it was noted previously in the last meeting that there's very limited parking on Goodman Drive. And so I'm happy to see what you're presenting here today. And we've had conversations prior to today's meeting. I think it's a much better design, and I think you agree as well. Thank
Absolutely. You. Yes. Thank you. It was a very good process that we had, very collaborative, the end results. Really good.
It's going to be growing in the north. There's lots of vacant land. So let's just keep in mind these parking requirements for visitors and for accessibility going forward as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions? No, Councillor Edie, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good morning.
You too, thank you.
Next is Jeff Powerluck to be heard with respect to report 8, but Jeff is not with us in the Zoom meeting and not here in the room. So So we'll move on to the next delegation. See if Jeff joins us later. So the next delegation is John Winthrop to be heard with respect to report 9.
Yeah, I've got a presentation.
Was it the one that we attached to the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you just plug it into the laptop there.
Yeah. No, this one. Which one is it?
Go ahead.
Here?
Yep, that's the one.
Smooth.
Perfect. Up, so you'll open the. Go ahead, so just run it there. And then open the presentation.
All right, sure. Or it's just up there automatically. Oh, wow, this is different, isn't it? So
You'll just want to do it through Zoom, so
Oh, yeah,
that
I'll do that.
everyone on
Oh, yeah,
Zoom,
yeah.
yeah, so click on the Zoom icon there. Yeah. And then hover above the bottom, yeah, so share screen,
Yeah, okay,
and then which screen you'd like to share,
that one.
and then share.
Oh, okay. Someone. All right, thank you. I apologize for the delay, the technical issues. Thank you so much. Leah, I do appreciate your assistance with the computer. I'm an Apple guy. Good morning, counselors. I'm here again for this project. This has been ongoing for I think 9 or 10 years. For the rezoning subdivision, Inkster, King Edward. My name's John Winthrop, professional planner, certified Canada and US. Working on behalf of the landowner. Today, we're at the public meeting for a servicing agreement amendment we're looking for the developer to construct the improvements. We're at the LSWK Community Committee meeting before this proceeds any further. Back in 2016, we did a subdivision rezoning that went all the way through and was approved with the condition that the developer pays for improvements. I'll go over those improvements shortly. In 2023, we did the plan approval on the site. Early this year, we were actually at the Standing Policy Committee of Public Works back, I think, in June for non-conforming approaches, 2 approaches on Inkster, 1 approach on King Edward. The ward councillor is on that committee, but she was unavailable and not at that meeting. That matter was adjourned for, I believe, 150 or 180 days. I had talked to the Director of Public Works at that time. We're hoping to work through some things with the Director of Public Works. So that was adjourned and is coming back to that committee in the fall. What are we doing here today? We're looking to change the development agreement for the improvements in King Edward, Inkster, and the traffic signals at the corner of Inkster and King Edward. This development, to give you some context of it, we call it Port Town at the northwest corner of Inkster and King Edward. It's located 1 block south of Haggard, 1 block east of Groverdale. Excuse me, in the North Inkster neighborhood. We're on the boundary of the electoral wards between Old Kildonan and Point Douglas. Point Douglas is across the street to the south and to the east of us. Old Kildonan is everything to the north and west of us. We are urban structure employment lands. We have a separate sewer district, the Innsbrook Sewer District. We're outside the airport vicinity protection area regulations. We're outside the PDO2 that's up there, the Innsbrook employment. As you know, I was involved with that project several years ago as well. We are outside that new PDO1 mature communities overlay, so we're outside of that PDO. We are on Inkster is a regional street. It is a full-time truck route, Route 25. Transit currently runs down Inkster as well as runs down King Edward Street with express routes and crosstown routes on King Edward and a express route on Inkster. In 2025, there will no longer be any transit going down Inkster in front of our property. We will have a collector bus, I think it's called, the 332 running up and down King Edward at our location. There is a multi-use path on the south side of Inkster, as well as one along Cleveland Street, Groverdale. There is apparently a medium stress route informal pathway along King Edward at our location. The amount of traffic down Inkster Boulevard has increased according to City of Winnipeg between 2019 and 2022 from approximately 25,000 vehicles to 27,000 vehicles. So there's been an increase in traffic on Inkster. Currently, Inkster at our location is 2 lanes westbound. There's no sidewalk, has wood hydro poles. There are 3 street lights, and the boulevard is certainly weed choked. There's no what we would call an auxiliary lane. I think I spelled that wrong. It's got wood poles along the north side of Inkster bounding our property. There's no sidewalk. Again, it's 2 lanes westbound. The flanking street, King Edward, is 2 to 4 lanes. We have a median for the most part of our property, and then the median ends about 125 feet south of our north property line. There are no sidewalks on either side. Again, it's 2 to 4 lanes, King Edward, our flanking street. The median ends approximately 125 feet south of the north property line. There is no slip lane onto Inkster. So it's just 2 lanes that come up to southbound at Inkster. There is a left turning lane and then another lane, but there is no slip lane. There is a bus stop just north of our property in front of the place of worship up there. It's just a bus stop that's, has a concrete pad, but there's no sidewalk or pathway along King Edward at that location. It's kind of a field. Our street, it widens at our property. Again, there's a median. The median stops 125 feet south of our property line. There's 1 street line. There are tall hydro towers for a high transmission lane. The boulevard is filled with weeds that are anywhere between 4 to 5 feet tall. And in this picture I've taken for Councillor Edie's benefit, I noticed a lot of people just walking along the street or along the curb getting up to Inkster Street. There is no sidewalk or AT pathway. There are hydro towers that are very significantly tall. They're the high transmission lines that run up and down King Edward and further south down King Edward. Again, the boulevard is just filled with weeds. There's no sidewalk, no pathway, no slip lane from King Edward on to Inkster. Currently, the intersection of King Edward and Inkster has a left turn lane from folks driving east from Inkster to King Edward. There's a left turn lane for folks driving west from Inkster onto King Edward. There is a slip lane at the northeast corner for folks going from Inkster to King Edward. There's a slip lane by the school for folks going from Inkster again on the King Edward, but we don't have a slip lane at our intersection. The surrounding lands directly to the north is a place of worship, Zone A. To the west of us is 10 acres of land. It's vacant. It's 2125 Inkster. It's Zone A. The Northwest Business Park, which I was involved in, has C2 M1 zoning. South of us is Stanley Knowles School, Zone PR2. And to the east of us is a single detached housing, Zone R1, and a church right at the corner of Zone RR5. Again, to the north of us is Emmanuel Lutheran Church, place of worship. It's been there for, I believe, several decades. It's on the west side of King Edward, just north of our property. Further to the north and west of us is the Inkster is actually 3 lanes, has a concrete sidewalk. The Northwest Business Park also buried the hydro poles. There's a slip lane onto Groverdale. There are street lights along Inkster. Boulevard landscape with trees. Directly to the north of us is a slip lane in front of Stanley Knowles School, where Inkster is 3 lanes eastbound, and there's a multi-use path. Across the street to us is just 2 lanes of housing. They are on a service road. There's no sidewalk, and then right at the intersection, no slip lane, and it's 4 lanes. We have a C2 zone proposed for our property and a plan of subdivision to widen King Edward by 21 feet, Inkster by 11 feet, and put in a corner cut for a slip lane. That plan of subdivision is not registered. Those openings have not occurred. We still have the A zoning right now. Our lands are vacant right now. We have a sign on the property for marketing and a small trailer for future work. We've done it's going to be a multi-tenant, multi-unit development. The plan approval has been completed. We are looking for 2 approaches on Inkster, 1 approach on King Edward. The approach on King Edward is further to the north. The 2 approaches on Inkster are further to the west, near the west end of our property. I'll get into the approaches in a minute. There are 2 approaches. Ideally, we're looking at a possible tenant of a gas station going in here, and the approaches have been orientated for that. For Inkster, for improvements that we'd like to do, is we'd like to relocate some existing streetlights. We'd like to bury the hydro. We're already obligated to put in the sidewalk, but we'd like to clean up the boulevard, widen Inkster in front of our property, put in that 3rd auxiliary lane, put in the slip lane right at the corner. So we'd like to improve Inkster in 2025. Long-term Inkster, that 3rd lane would be extended to the existing 3rd lane in front of the 10 acres, the vacant 10 acres to the west of us. As part of that development application, change the zoning on those lands.
How many more minutes do you need?
I'll do it in a minute.
In a minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
Moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, go right ahead, John, thanks.
Again, our requirements right now, our services are to be installed is we're to pay for services into Inkster for concrete pavement widening, street lighting at the North Boulevard, landscaping in the North Boulevard. We like to install that in front of our property. King Edward, really, we just want our entrance on King Edward. We'd have to modify the median to get into it. I understand the city of Winnipeg has concerns about widening or improving King Edward at this time. You know, if we want to leave them the same as is, that's fine by us as long as we can get the approach. Our requirement right now is to pay for an asphalt concrete pathway, street lighting in the West Boulevard and landscaping in the West Boulevard. We're providing the widening now. We'd be happy to do it now, but if the city doesn't want that done now, we understand. We're more interested in the improvements along, I think, the slip lane, the intersection improvements, signals improvements related to that slip lane and a pedestrian crossing.
Thank you, John. I think we'll have some questions for sure. Okay, I do have one question, but go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. John, thank you for the presentation. So essentially, the amendments at a high level, you're looking at construction to Inkster, construction to King Edward, and then traffic signal relocation. Those are the various.
Yeah, what we're really focused on is we'd love to do the Inkster widening for the 3rd lane. We'd like to have the 2 approaches related to Inkster, but we'd like to clean up and along some curb appeal here. It's been 8 years as we're looking to do a high-end development. The boulevard is choked with weeds, 2 lanes. We have to put in a sidewalk, but I can't understand why we wouldn't do all the other work in the boulevard too. So we're required to obligated to construct the sidewalk in front of our property, but we'd like to clean up the curb appeal in front of the project on Inkster, redo the boulevard, bury the hydro lines. We've already got an application in the Manitoba Hydro for that. They're waiting for this process to play out, but we're really looking to clean up Inkster and widen that street.
There's a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah.
A lot of detail. I think the goal is to make it a viable project. This has been going on for a while, the conversation. Want to make it a viable project for the owner. What conversations have you had so far with our land development branch or planning?
Talking to land development, we talked to Public Works and we've been talking a lot with Hydro because they're a significant player in this. We started with land development, then we ended up going to Public Works who told us to go talk to Hydro. And then from Hydro, we had to go back to Public Works and then from Public Works back to Hydro. So there's been a lot of discussions of us. We started this back in January of me chasing after different engineers and different branches and different organizations. The hydro towers along King Edward, we're not looking to bury those. That's a significant expense. And Hydro has given us finally details, but they've said they've given details to Public Works related to what road widenings can and can't happen there, because there's a radius around how close you can put roads next to those hydro towers. And I don't think anybody is gonna willingly bury or move those. So we've been looking to get information on that. We understand the complexities of King Edward Street because of those massive hydro towers. I think personally, I can't speak for, I'll speak for my client in this. We'd like to put the AT path in there. I think that's important to get that in there to clean up the boulevard, not necessarily the widening at King Edward. I think the AT path should be installed just because we're gonna have people coming to our development. We have to put the sidewalk in on Inkster, but we'd like to more put our improvements along Inkster Street.
So what's in front of us? You're familiar with the report.
Yes.
The public service is recommending rejection at this time. So there seems, anyways, I'll pause for a minute, Councilor Reedy.
Well, let's be clear. The city's not rejecting the ideas. They're rejecting that this project will go ahead and do the work rather than paying it into the common fund for all those regional
That's right.
road improvements and collector roads to improvements, right? Is that
Well,
correct?
if I read the report, they said they have a urbanization plan for King Edward, which that sounds great. We're on board with that. And Inkster seems to be we're more focused. Our focus is on Inkster. The public service seems more focused on King Edward. I think there's some common ground there. Is it?
Just to clarify, I'm gonna jump in because
Yeah.
we procedurally can't ask the public service questions right now. Could you chime in, Kevin, on what's before us? Reasons for
So
rejection?
they're not gonna pay into the.
So the city, so typically, all the clauses within the agreement or the approved council minutes are typical with the development agreement parameters in that Inkster was improved. This
It's
property
already been
benefited,
approved.
it's already been improved. This property benefited, therefore this property pays their share of that improvement. The traffic signals are there. This property benefits, therefore this property pays their share of the traffic signals. King Edward is a certainly complicated situation in that we still need to acquire land to the north, specifically for the AT path that that we believe currently will be located on the west side of the pylons. So we don't own that land today, therefore we can't construct the active transportation path today. If the applicant would like to improve the boulevard, we are more than open to amending the agreement to include boulevard landscaping on Inkster to coincide with his sidewalk installation. That's a really easy one that we would support. However, we don't support constructing infrastructure that's already constructed and that they're obligated to pay for.
Similar to what you just.
So you're saying Inkster was already improved. Does it have that access road?
Inkster is 2 lanes. If you-
It doesn't have the access,
That would
third
be part of
access
the
lane.
Private approach, that was already their obligation. If they are approved for that kind of access through Public Works, they would already have to construct whatever infrastructure is required for it. It's not part of this agreement, it's outside of the scope.
So the access lane, like there is an access lane on King Edward, I think, on the east side, as you go along Meadows West or Inkster Gardens.
A storage lane?
Yeah, like a lane to get you off the traffic,
Again. that
so
would
you
be
can
more
go about
street.
doing your business,
I'm not
like they
a,
have on Firmware, right?
if the traffic warranted it, it would be part of the Public Works purview. If it's access related, it's part of the development.
John?
We'd love to see
You're talking about that Firmware access road?
the King Edward. Yeah, there's a service road that services the
Or
single
service.
family dwellings on the east side of King Edward. You're correct on that.
There is a service road.
Yeah, there's nothing on the west side. It's just 2 lanes and then the church. Again, we're fine if not improving King Edward. Our focus is we'd like to get an access point off King Edward and modify that median so we can make a left turn into our property at the north end of our site, south of the church. I think the AT trail could go into the public right of way that we're dedicating to the city of Winnipeg and cleaning up the boulevard along there If we're not widening the pavement, okay, we'll pay for not widening the pavement and put our fair share in it. We'd like to see Inkster improved. It's 2 lanes. We'd like to see a 3rd lane and the slip lane installed along at our intersection to make it safer. I'm
Not
guessing
a service road, but
not a service, it's a 3rd
3rd
lane.
lane.
So when you drive down Inkster to get into the Northwest Business Park, there's a 3rd lane that's been installed there with a sidewalk, trees, buried hydro lines. That's what we'd like. We'd like to urbanize the street other than 2 lanes.
okay.
Okay, I do have a question. So help me understand. The improvement on Inkster is the number 1 priority with the slip lane, right? That's kind of your number 1 priority. And from what I'm understanding is the developer has not paid into its share of the improvements that had already occurred on Inkster. Is that correct?
That sounds like what's happened is that Inkster was
Okay.
approved a few years ago
Yeah,
as a regional road.
okay. Now there's gonna be a request from developers to do more improvements before paying into the improvements that had occurred. Is that correct?
We're looking to do, like I said, the 3rd lane onto Inkster with, that's what we like the agreement to reflect or something.
Without having to pay into the improvements that already occurred 3 years ago?
We'd be willing to look at paying improvements until that happened before. What we're looking for is to improve Inkster for 3rd lane. That's
Yeah.
what we've been looking to do.
Okay.
And we'd like to have an agreement that reflects that.
Kevin, do you have anything to add to that?
I just want to say, I don't think this is the appropriate forum for this conversation for access. John has already gone to SBC Public Works. That is the appropriate approving body for private accesses. And right now, to approve a slip lane for approaches that are not currently approved seems to be not a logical progression.
Thank you. John, there's a lot of complexities here, a lot of detail, a lot of decisions and so on. If we laid the matter over, the next meeting, there's one in September at the end of the month, and there's one at the end of October. And does the end of October work for you, your client and yourself?
We'd like to get going, but if that's what needs to happen here, so we can sort out, we want, what we'd like to achieve here is a very good development. We'd like to make that empty field into productive businesses that want to be out there. We have a high level of interest, including, I think it would fit there a gas station, which is permitted on the zoning. Whatever engineering issues I think can be resolved. We'd like to make our development reflective of the Northwest Business Park. That takes us to October. I understand that. Okay, but we'd like to get going on something on that site.
So Madam Clerk, just procedurally, I think it's October 29th, the October meeting.
Right.
And if we said up to 60 days, could we bring it back in September for the end of September if we were ready with our discussions?
You could, the minutes from this meeting will reflect that it's laid over for up to 60 days,
Up
so.
to 60 days, and that does work for you, John?
That works for us right now.
I think that gives it.
I have a question just before we, not so much on Inkster, because Inkster sounds like it's a total, you have to deal with Public Works for it, but along King Edward, is there not a move to have development for a new high school on the west side of King Edward, north of Inkster?
Yes, but the province is not funding it.
It's not
Well, they're
funded
not,
yet.
oh, so it's not going ahead.
No, it's not.
That'll cause some serious traffic issues
Yes.
on King Edward, right?
Yes. I think it's part of the transportation master plan. Is that right, Kevin?
Actually, no, the transportation master plan that well, but the school did go forward with the rezone, so we do have the land in front of that, so we can. The problem is that there's a property in between this and that we can't have a continuous AT path to Commercial Avenue. It doesn't
But the
help us.
traffic,
Well, I mean,
anyway, we're not talking here, but if they build that high school, you're gonna have serious traffic problems on King.
Public Works is definitely within their radar. They are actively looking at conceptual design and trying to move forward with the King Edward. But as I mentioned, it's complicated or as John mentioned, it's complicated by the hydro pylons. And we believe we have a workable solution, but there's still some things we need to fall into place.
That school, Kevin, I believe we approved it. It's just not funded as by the province's counselor Santos.
It was funded and they registered, so they have. their-
We've done our approvals.
We've done our land development approvals.
That's right.
And like I said, we've gotten the land there that we can put the AT path in front of it. But we still, you don't want an AT path just to end in a field or a private property.
Yeah.
And then continue
Yes.
when you get closer to Inkster.
Okay,
So-
so moving along, we're kind of going out of, the scope of the issue here, but, Counselor Sharma, if it's okay, because you and I are bordering this issue, whatever discussions you're having, I'd like to continue to work with you offline, if possible, with Kevin and whoever else is involved to remediate this issue, because it is an important development. I'm not disagreeing with that, but it's a very complicated issue. I'm not an engineer. I don't pretend to be, and I don't understand the technicalities of development agreements, but I think, I'm just hearing from my council colleague, we'd like to, work together on this, on a good solution. Is that the idea, Counselor Sharma?
Yes, I think it's a complicated file, need a little bit more time with it.
Okay.
And speaking further with land development and public works, and obviously with the
I
applicant.
think ideally it'd be great if we got the engineers from Hydro, the engineers from Public Works, and whatever engineers you want in like one meeting that
Yeah.
probably would take about 20 minutes
Yeah.
and we could resolve all this. We have our own team of engineers from WSP.
Okay.
And I think if the engineers got together and for like about 20 to 30 minutes, this whole thing could be resolved. Instead, I've been chasing after a whole bunch of engineers since January and getting pieces of information. If I can just get them all in one meeting and like for about 30 minutes, I think we're gonna resolve almost all of this stuff so that we can actually start getting permits going in the springtime. That's our goal, is to get going. We'd like to see road construction, things like that going like in 2025.
I think
We understand.
I think city staff have also shared valuable information of what's possible and not possible at this site. So let's have that fulsome conversation. And I appreciate the work of the public service so far on this file. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, seeing the hour of 10:28, I believe we have to
have hearings and.
hearings and then we'll come back to report. So, I think we need about a 5-minute break to do that. Okay. So moved, I think, from Councilor Sharma to do a 5-minute break.
So moved.
Good morning and welcome to the Lord Selkirk West Kildonan Community Committee. We are going into the hearings portion of LSWK for Thursday, September 5th, 2024. My name is Councillor Vivian Santos. I will be the chairperson for today's meeting, together with my council colleagues, Councillor Debbie Sharma and Councillor Edie, together with the Winnipeg Public Service, our senior committee clerk, Lita Cowan, our planner, Cindy Jerez, and Kevin, what's your Kevin last name? Koala, thank you, from the Planning, Property and Development Department. Also want to acknowledge that we're meeting on Treaty 1 territory, traditional homelands of the Red River Métis, which we have the privilege of living on. Also want to acknowledge our ancestral territory lands, and our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake Band number 40 in Treaty 3. Together with also our neighbors in Treaty 5, which our hydroelectricity comes from. Leah, if you can introduce the beginning of the meeting, please. Thank you.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the public hearing process brochure, which is available on the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. Item 1 is a subdivision and rezoning at 927 Notre Dame Avenue under file DASZ 22 of 2024. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing, and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 2 is a variance at 927 Notre Dame Avenue under file DAB 156520 of 2024 T. Please note additional communications were received in support of the matter after the agenda was published, which have been distributed to all members of the committee.
Okay. is it the will of the committee? We had some discussions, just for the public who are listening. We had discussions that we needed to deal with one of the reports because there's a conjoining another community committee that our planner needs to go and leave for. So is the will of the committee to recess for just a short, brief, like minute and deal with item number 9, which is what we just heard about the subdivision rezoning of northwest corner of Inkster Boulevard and King Edward Street.
It's a good idea, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor to recess? Nobody's in opposition. That's carried. Okay, so we'll deal with item number 9 first and go ahead, Councillor Sharma. I think you had some comments you'd like to make.
Item number 9, Madam Clerk. Yes, just wanted to know if the land development branch wanted to add anything further at this time. I think the intent is to lay it over to the October 29th meeting to look at this file a little bit closer.
Okay. Lay over to October 29th, moved by Councillor Sharma. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on back to our hearings
And just
portion.
before we get into that, Madam Clerk, I
Yes.
just want to thank Mr. Kolick for his work on this file. It's a very complicated file and a lot of various public service members are involved. So thank you for your work today.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Okay, moving back to our hearings portion, going into our first, like you had mentioned, I believe we have some delegation, right?
If the committee wishes to have a brief overview from public service.
Oh, yes. Student. Thank you.
Should I go through? Should we wait for them to come?
Yes, let's wait for them to come in. They're here in person?
Yes.
Okay. For people watching online, we're just waiting for the delegates to enter the room before, and then we'll have an overview from the administration.
You only fill that out if you're looking to speak to the application, and then some folks registered in advance, but if you did not do that and you are looking to speak, you have to fill that out. Yeah, if you're just wishing to observe, you can do so in the gallery.
Go ahead, Simi, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is an application to rezone 927 Notre Dame from C2 in the PDO, West Alexander and Centennial PDO, pardon me, to CMU district, commercial mixed use district, for the construction of a new 4-story commercial mixed use multifamily building. The applicant is WSP.
A little louder, Simi.
Sure thing. The applicant is WSP on behalf of Sunshine House and Two Spirit Manitoba. The letter of intent states that Sunshine House and Two Spirit Manitoba are partnering in the development of queer village housing development for individuals experiencing or at risk of gender-based violence. Note this application is associated with a transitional housing project that qualifies for the Affordable Housing Concierge Service through the Housing Accelerator Fund. The site is on the north side of Notre Dame in the West Alexander neighborhood of the Point Douglas ward. It's currently vacant, or pardon me, it's a surface parking lot accessed by a concrete public lane. Under Complete Communities Direction Strategy, the site is within the urban mixed-use corridor policy area and falls within the commercial policy area of the West Alexander and Centennial Plan. The property is, as mentioned, zone C2, and the proposed development would include 6 emergency residential shelter units on the ground floor, as well as social service offices and communal space, 14 self-contained transitional housing units, 14 beds on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and 7 self-contained social housing units on the 4th floor. I'll skip ahead a little bit ahead. Shared amenity spaces are shown as mentioned on the main floor, as well as a rooftop garden on the second floor terrace. The primary entrance would be off Notre Dame. Elevations include 3 building materials for the front and rear elevations. The proposal would have no on-site parking. However, the letter of intent indicates that the applicant negotiated an agreement with First Mennonite Church of Winnipeg to have 8 dedicated parking spaces for staff and visitors on their existing surface parking lot at 940 Notre Dame Avenue across the street. Indoor bike racks and storage will be provided. Variances are also required for substandard lot area, reduced building setbacks, density, that's the lot area per dwelling unit, and for no street edge landscaping. The application also includes the subdivision of 4.5 feet strip running across the back lane to accommodate, it's actually through plan considerations to accommodate a future lane widening. With that, welcome any questions?
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, so I just need some clarity on the subdivision and rezoning between the two different plans, because currently there's a PDO of the West Alexander and Centennial, right?
Yes.
Okay, so can you just clarify what we're subdividing and rezoning? Do we need to change the PDO? Is that what we're looking for? Or if you could just kind of expound that?
No, it's in compliance with the PDO. There's no
Okay.
change required.
Okay, so then what's the subdivision and rezoning then?
It's to consolidate the 2 underlying parcels.
Okay,
So
Of the
that's, it's
parking
actually,
lot?
yes,
okay, so the parking lot has 2 underlying lots?
that's right,
Okay, so then they just need to combine it.
right.
Okay, there's no caveats or anything on title or anything of anything that we need to remove?
Nothing on that, what we need to remove.
Okay, and then the variances, at a high level, you had mentioned, I'm just scrolling down here. Substandard lot area, what does that mean?
Yes, it's just undersized for CMU lot. So we have that on a lot of infill sites
Mhm.
where they don't meet the size requirement, the bulk requirement of the lot that they're rezoning to, the lot, the actual size of the lot that they're to rezone to.
What's the percentage? Variance? Percentage?
Let's see, that's- So, I don't have a percentage offhand, but it's a total of 836 square meters. And it is compatible. It doesn't really have an impact on the area. The reason for rezoning to this high a district is because a density variance is required. But per the development procedures bylaw, we can only grant a density variance over 10%
Yeah.
in the highest zoning districts.
And and the application is granting how much?
How much of a density
Yes,
variance?
how much of a density variance?
Sorry, I had that handy, I misplaced it. It is. Not where I thought it was, okay. Oh, here we go. So the required lot area per unit is 800 square feet, and they're proposing 375 square feet. This being in part, it's small self-contained units for the transitional housing.
And then I believe you said in your notes here, reduced building setbacks, it's the front, right? The front, no street edging on the front.
That's right.
Okay.
In addition to east and west side yard setbacks, which is in line with commercial development along Notre Dame.
So side yards. What about the back lane?
There is, yeah, along the back lane, 2 rear yard of 4.5 feet instead of 25 feet. And typically we have that set back to parking.
Yeah.
Because
there's no parking.
that's right.
Thank you. Right, I'm good with questions. Council colleagues, you're okay? Okay, we can move on to delegations.
So first we'll hear from the applicant, Lauren Page, who's speaking with Levi Foy in person today. You can both come up to the desk. This one. Yeah, you can just plug it right into the laptop there. It's on the left. It's right by it. Perfect.
we go. Share your screen.
Select which one you'd like to share. I think it's this one. Is it? Yes. Okay.
Good morning. You guys have 10 minutes. That's okay for the both of you?
Should be,
Sharing
yeah.
your time? Okay.
Yeah. You can just throw something at me if I'm going too long.
Okay, well, we'll let you know and we can probably give you an extension. No worry.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to lead?
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm gonna present good morning, my name is Levi Foy. I'm the Executive Director of Sunshine House, located at the corner of 646 Logan. We're a community resource and drop-in center, been around since 1990, actually. And then I've been there since 2019. Sunshine House, I'm gonna provide a little bit of the context and a face to kind of what's behind this plan, and then Lauren will go into all the technical aspects because I will undersell that a lot. Sunshine House has been one of the leading organizations in providing safe services and support to LGBTQIA+ people experiencing the convergence of gender-based violence and houselessness in the city since about 2014. We've been one of the leaders in securing location and housing support specific to these communities since 2019, 2020. And the exacerbation of interpersonal and structural violence that disproportionately impact these communities during the congruent crises of COVID-19 overdoses and housing supply. In early 2020, by bringing together community members, community groups, and community leaders, we formed a 2S LGBTQIA+ advisory committee to direct us and provide guidance on how to create one solution for some of these challenges. The advisory group comprised now entirely of people with lived and living experience of absolute homelessness, and anti-2S LGBTQIA+ violence has been instrumental in navigating us through securing location, funding applications, building and program design, and policy and procedure development. Through this group of a rotating cast of about 10 to 12 individuals, we have worked collaboratively with stakeholders, realtors, architects, politicians, and partners to ensure that we will never sell the vision of the community short and not create an entity that will not be a high standard of care for 2S LGBTQIA+ community members. The vision was called the Queer Village, and it's a place where all 2S LGBTQIA+ people will be welcomed. That would include emergency shelter spaces, transitional housing, and independent living. Built into this space would be supports for those navigating gender journeys, cultural supports, and access to community through a variety of common spaces, recreational programming, and wraparound supports. We have never been allowed to deviate from this vision, nor have I been directed to piece this project out as many funders have asked us to. Far too many times, our communities have seen promises not delivered or undermined by organizations, businesses, and individuals who may not have the best interests of communities in mind or direct connection to these communities. In 2023, Sunshine House, as guided by the advisory committee, formed a partnership with Two Spirit People of Manitoba, who have provided seed money to explore the possibilities of a gender-based violence shelter and transitional housing facility here in Winnipeg. This partnership has been extremely successful in demonstrating the power that communities have when resources are pooled together and we are brought together in strength-based relationships to create solutions. Through this partnership and the continual guidance of the Community Advisory Committee and stakeholders, we have been able to produce much of the funding, the land, and give birth to Minwase Bindige Wigamig. I am hopeful that this brief few minutes I was able to convey the strength, courage, and commitment of community members such as Delphine, Tasha, Jesse, Jaden, Dawn, Lee, and our knowledge keepers or cookums, Kelly, Gail, and Winnie, and many others who have dedicated their time and energy to ensure this project was led entirely by 2S LGBTQIA+ Indigenous community members. I really want to reiterate the need for more spaces like this in a city like this in Winnipeg. We are seeing a rapid rise in anti-2S LGBTQIA+ hate speech, crime, and violence in urban and rural centers alike. This is what is measurable. However, statistics also demonstrate that instances of intimate partner violence, family violence, and sexual violence experienced by 2S LGBTQI+ people is underreported. And in those moments where a queer person is no longer welcome in their homes or in their communities, they're often placed into situations where they have to survive and create communities or land in communities or spaces where personal safety have to be compromised for survival. That being said, there is a growth of police reported anti-2S LGBTQIA+ hate crimes, and in the past 5 years, we have seen a 225% increase of anti-queer crimes in Canada. Our Gijawinamin program alone has a caseload of over 80 2S LGBTQIA+ community members who are survivors of gender-based violence with minimal dollars from federal, provincial, or municipal funding supporting this program. We get funding for 6 cases for an entire year, and we have over 80 right now. If politicians do not have the courage to utilize their resources to fully stop or hinder the growing anti-trans, anti-queer, and anti-2S LGBTQIA movements, then at the very least they can provide us the space to create community and safety on our own terms. I thank you for your time, and I will pass it over to Lauren from WSP Consulting, who has been absolutely crucial to this project and the gold star definition of an ally. Thank you.
Thank you. Not much to add to Levi. I just want to also recognize the perseverance and determination of Sunshine House, Two-Spirit Manitoba, and the community advisory group, the members that Levi mentioned. I'll just go back to the timeline for a moment, and I just want everyone to recognize that they began visioning and planning for this project in 2017. So it's been a long time coming, and we're so excited to be here today. Through the visioning, as Levi mentioned, the funding applications happened. We did neighborhood engagement and outreach in February of this year. We hand delivered newsletters to almost 300 residents throughout the neighborhood, held an open house in the springtime. So the neighborhood is on board, and also want to recognize the partnership with the First Mennonite Church of Winnipeg, as they are the partner of the site, have also been an ally. Levi discussed what will exist in the building. There will be 6 emergency units for a total of 11 beds, 14 transitional housing units, and 7 social housing units. All the units will be rent geared to income, so 100% rent geared to income across the building with 24/7 on-site supports for the individuals living there. It will be a safe place for people to live, regardless of where they are on their housing journey. As the planner's report mentioned, again, through the partnership with the First Mennonite Church of Winnipeg, we will have parking for staff and visitors through a parking agreement with the church across Notre Dame. Here's a few of the interior views, a little bit of concept design here, what it will look like in the future. Lots of color and vibrancy, which was taken from the direction of the community. On the main floor here on the floor plan, it shows that the emergency shelter units are towards the back in the light blue color there. The communal spaces, the community kitchen, the ceremony room, and the meeting rooms are in the center of the main floor space. And along the front, facing Notre Dame, will be the office space for the on-site staff. The second floor is where the first set of transitional housing units will be located, along with a shared storage room and a lounge for residents to meet and congregate, and the rooftop terrace there in the green. Third floor is almost identical. Again, these will be transitional housing units with a rooftop terrace, a little bit smaller, and again, a lounge and meeting area. And the fourth floor will be social housing units, and they will be slightly larger units and will be for independent living of individuals that choose to stay if they move on there. For now, which, thank you very much for having us here today, and we'll answer any questions.
Perfect. I do have a couple of questions, but I'll let my council colleagues go first. Go ahead, Councillor Sharma.
Levi, Lauren, thank you so much for your presentation. There are a lot of important details that you've shared. Just a couple questions I have. In terms of can you explain the difference between transitional housing and social housing?
So transitional usually there's a timeline on it, but it varies from organization to organization. So yeah.
So in the current, one of the proposed funders who will be supporting this project, our requirements are to have a specific definition on terms set out by community on how long they're allowed to live in transitional housing, but also they won't be living in those spaces unsupported. So there'll be a dedicated team of caseworkers. There'll be a dedicated team of supports available to them to help them navigate and exit houselessness on their own terms. So finding independent apartments, or if there's space available on the third floor, that's why it's signed that way.
There's no approximate duration of stay in transitional, it's case by case.
I think ideally they want it 60 days. Anything over 60 days is generally viewed as being more permanent, stable housing.
Excellent. I liked the collaboration you did in the community. You reached out quite a lot. In terms of feedback from the West Alexander Residents Association, they had some good feedback, I think, for you to improve the streetscape along Notre Dame Avenue. What did you hear from them?
Yes, they mentioned that they would like to see a little bit of greenery, and they weren't specific. They just wanted to see that we could meet that ask. And we discussed having planters that would be designated, of course, out of the pathway of travel, but close to the building, as well as hanging planters.
Great, and thank you for the hand-delivered notes that you sent out in the community. Often around this table, we hear about throwing something up on a website, and that's not the proper way to engage, in my opinion. So thanks for taking the time to put out those hand-delivered flyers. I think it makes a difference. Last question for now. Can you tell me about your experience working with our new affordable housing concierge?
Yes, because this project sort of started with the administration last summer. So it sort of started before the affordable housing concierge was in place, but since they have been in place, they've been excellent. Have really helped us, especially we had some tweaks that needed to occur before today, and they were very instrumental in helping.
It's a new service we're offering, so I was just curious. Thank you.
Excellent project. That's a long time. Was that 7 years ago? So you were referring to 24/7 support, because I mean, that's really important, right? So if I move into the social independent living portion, that support is there if they need it.
Yes.
Yes.
And to clarify, most of the caseworkers who would be providing support would be dedicated to the folks who would be in transitional housing or social housing. But then that's where the partnership with Sunshine House will remain permanent. And so if there's a person who requires a dedicated caseworker that can't be there, then they would be enrolled into a program that best fit them at Sunshine House through one of our 3 existing programs. And then also because there would be staff, a reception staff on site, and not necessarily security, like traditional security guards, but folks who can act as 24 hours supports using culturally appropriate methods of intervention, de-escalation. Those kind of folks will always be available.
Like at the library, they utilize those community safety hosts, which were people with lived experience and guide the conversation to a thing, right? So that kind of security, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. So typically 50 days, eh? Wow. I did a couple of months transitional housing for people who are blind, just making sure I could cook on my own without burning down the apartment or those kind of things. But so you're saying typically it's the average is 50,
That's not the average, that's the arbitrary number that.
that's arbitrary.
That's an arbitrary number that funders like to throw out is.
And I get a little
60 days.
concerned about the. Actually, so the aspects here are different, but if you end up working with somebody with you know, a certain level of disability as well, right? Like people with disabilities are of all persuasions and so on, right? And of different minds, right? Sometimes finding that permanent housing where they can, you know, move into that can take a long time. Anyway, I'm sure you'll work the best you can with your funders and that'll work. I just wanted to make one other comment, with the neighborhood. You know, I find nothing better, more calming and, settling than, you know, working a little bit in the garden, caring for some plants. And so if you do get those planters there, it's an opportunity for some of the people living there. And I just thought I'd make that comment. And sounds like a great project.
Thank you, Councillor Eady. One of the things that the community has been they've been really excited about are those common areas on each balcony and having planters and sometimes bees and all sorts of other like very exciting dreams that folks have for these spaces. So we're making sure that of course the bees are all safe, but it's still fun to be able to be in this dreaming phase.
Thank you, councillors. Yeah, just a couple of questions. Timelines. I know you had said that you'd started, you know, several years ago. We're at the stage, which is fantastic now the location, but what are your now timelines for construction? Are you now fully funded? Or are you going to start a capital campaign? Can you kind of describe what the next steps are?
Yeah, so right now we're sitting at a Class C cost estimate. We're almost at Class B. So for the Class C cost estimate, we have full 100% funding. Most of the funders, it's at conditionally approved or conditionally committed because they are waiting for the approval of this. The agreements can be signed and a few other requirements that need to be met. But we do have letters of commitment for the costs.
What are those full costs? Do you mind sharing that number with me?
Construction alone is sitting around 13.
How much?
13.
13 million? That's a class C.
Class.
And what do you need to, so assuming that we're approving at this stage, you need to now bring those estimates up to another Class C, to another class?
Or yeah, B and then A to the final.
Okay.
So we're hoping as quickly as possible,
Yeah.
but still some design refinements to occur, go through land titles
Mhm. So you might be thinking shovels in the ground next year
in spring.
in spring. Okay. Okay. You know, I don't know if you're able to answer the question or not. If you can't, that's totally fine. But I am curious, you'd mentioned about gender-based violence and in the rise in it. Do you happen to know the data offhand? Just in Winnipeg in general, what the data is for the gender-based violence amongst the people that you're currently serving? Do you know that number?
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
It takes some parsing through. This was just a very cursory search at Statistics Canada this morning when I was preparing.
Yeah, so just say those numbers again.
There's 225 in the last 5 years of reported incidents, 225% increase since 2019 of gender-based violence, of 2S anti-LGBTQIA plus violence in Canada. That's reported
In the last 5 years.
in the last 5 years. And again, a lot of folks in rural areas, a lot of particularly queer men who experience sexual violence. Statistically, there's a historical underreporting where people will not report these things because of not being taken seriously by officials or because of further risks and puts in jeopardy their safety in their home and in the community.
Thank you. And then my last question, I know you are currently on Logan and Sherbrooke, right? You're not closing that down and moving here. Okay, so this is kind of an added addition to the current work that you're doing on Logan and Isabel or Sherbrooke, sorry.
Sherbrooke.
Sherbrooke.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. And so one of the goals as that has been driven by the community is that this entity will become its own entity. And so Two Spirit People of Manitoba and Sunshine House eventually will become partners, but not the drivers of this, so that the people who live and who have worked in those spaces and who have done it will be able to manage their own affairs. They don't need me meddling. And so we would continue to always provide support, but as a group of people who believe in autonomy and self-determination, that is very important to the group.
Okay, excellent. I think that's all the questions I have. Right, hey, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have no one else registered in support, but is there anyone in the gallery that wishes to register to speak in support of the application? Pete, did you fill out one of those slips?
So that's available right now.
Pardon?
I will right now.
Okay, you can speak first, and as long as you do, just hand it to me when you're finished. Yeah. You can speak now, and then just, once you're finished, you can just fill out a form and hand it to me. Thank you.
So he's noting that's because it's seen in the I think it was fine down. Because in social service, you right, it's
You have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
I just wanted to thank you everyone for,
Oh, if you can state your name,
sure.
yeah, for the public record, thank you.
My name is David Daniluk and I work with Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Indigenous and Northern Housing Solutions, Manitoba Sask region. And Two Spirit Manitoba and Sunshine House are clients that I serve. Just want to say that this is a very unique project nationally, maybe the first. And it's been approved in several funding circumstances, which is very uncommon. And I just wanted to say that a lot of the support that's coming here has been raised as a response to the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls recommendations. And that's why the federal government under CMHC and Indigenous Services Canada are have conditionally approved 2 applications for the additional and the shelter project. And I'm appearing also as a citizen in Winnipeg to support the project.
Thank you for coming out, really appreciate it. I don't think we've ever had anybody from CMHC come out in support of a project that they're.
It's a pretty spectacular project.
Yeah,
It's very
no,
unique.
this is
Yeah.
great.
Privileged to work with the team and the allies and everyone. It's really a lot of rare opportunities all aligned. So it's very, very impressive. Thank you.
Any questions from council colleagues? No? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so just confirming there's no one else in the gallery wishing to speak in support. There's no one registered in opposition. Is there anyone in the gallery wishing to speak in opposition to the application? There's no one registered for information. Is there anyone looking to speak with respect to the application? No. Okay, so for your questions about public comment.
Yeah. Is there questions for? No? Okay, so just offhand here, you had talked about the density and got the percentage. Can you explain that to me, why we're keeping it as CMU and not changing it, and why the density is so high? If we can just kind of explain that, yeah, because it is very high. I saw the number and it's fairly high.
Right, it's 375 square feet per unit instead of 800.
Yep.
As required in commercial mixed use. And that's a difference, it sounds like an enormous difference of 72.3%. However, this is the same as the current C2 zoning would permit, as well as residential multifamily medium density. We're looking to support a density variance. As mentioned previously, we would rezone to residential multifamily large or to residential mixed use. Residential multifamily large permits 400 square feet per dwelling unit. So it would have been only a difference of 25 square feet per unit in that zoning district, and residential mixed use permits 500 square feet per dwelling unit. So the difference would have been significantly less, but in those districts, the zoning bylaw would not permit the offices and social service uses. So we're flexible on accommodating commercial mixed use instead, so that we could have the wraparound supports on site at the scale that they're proposed.
Thank you for clarifying that. I don't have any other questions. I think, oh yeah, go ahead, Councillor Edie.
But to ask,
Sure.
is this project, it has kind of, office space on the main floor?
It does. I don't remember the square footage offhand, but it's like, it's a storefront. So they have a street ground level presence with offices and social service as well as delivering throughout the building, I guess, to that support.
I think the applicant can come back, right, and rebuttal if they'd like on any new information that you heard or on the information you heard from the administration. If you don't want, then you're good. Okay. So that means we can move into motions. If I can get Councillor Sharma to take the chair, I'd like to move this motion if possible. And just let me scroll down for a second and go to the first subdivision and rezoning. Okay, I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary carried.
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary carried.
I move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in. And where do we go? There's two of them here.
A through C.
EBC, there's no amendments.
Okay, so there's gonna be no amendments. I'm gonna support the project. Okay, so what the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to the Executive Policy Committee via the priority rezoning process.
All in favor?
Sorry.
Supporting reasons first.
Okay, there's no amendments, right? No, okay, not on this one. There was the other ones. Okay. Yes, my supportive reason, hold on, I wrote them down as, okay. So obviously, I'm very honored to be here today to speak on this project that has been a very long time coming. I want to thank Levi and his team and everybody involved for spearheading this transformative project in our community. The Queer Village Housing Development. This project and the partnership between Sunshine House and Two Spirit Manitoba represents not only a safe space, but a lifeline for 2S LGBTQI+ and gender diverse persons, particularly those experiencing or at risk of gender-based violence. The proposed development will feature a range of housing options tailored to meet the diverse needs of vulnerable individuals, including 6 emergency residential shelter units with 11 beds, providing immediate refuge for those facing urgent housing insecurity. These emergency units offer safety and protection when it's needed most. And beyond that emergency support, the Queer Village will also offer 14 self-contained transitional housing units, 14 beds in total, to help individuals move from crisis to stability. This transitional housing will provide vital support services to empower residents as they work towards greater independence and security. But the vision of this project doesn't stop here. 7 social housing units will provide permanent, affordable homes for those ready to move into the next phase of their lives. These units represent not just housing, but a foundation for long-term stability, dignity, and community belonging. This development is about more than just buildings. It's about providing a continuum of care from emergency shelter to transitional and permanent housing. Queer Village will ensure that gender diverse persons have a place they can call home at every stage of their journey. It's a project that exemplifies inclusivity, safety, and compassion, values that reflect the best of who we are as a community. And as we move forward, this development will serve as a model for how we can work together to provide housing and support to those who need it most, especially here in the Point Douglas ward. So those are my supporting comments. And again, I'm really excited. Hopefully we could do kind of a ceremonial shovels in the ground ceremony with my council colleagues here at LSWK. That would be greatly appreciated next year, assuming everything goes well with timelines and so on and so forth. And to move forward on to the mayor's mandate about housing. We are in a housing crisis, and housing is a top #1 priority for the city of Winnipeg. I can speak for myself as a #1 priority. And I know this speaks wholeheartedly to the mayor's mandate in moving forward. So, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or thank you, Councillor Santos. Yeah. I echo many of the comments you just made. And also, well, Levi put on the record that there's a much need for spaces like this. And we need to do more projects like this. It's a very exciting and important proposal that addresses homelessness among the LGBTQ community. A community that we know is disproportionately represented among our unhoused community. The design as presented is beautiful, and it fills a gap along Notre Dame with this high quality proposal. And hopefully that'll set a standard for urban design in this area. So I want to congratulate all those that are involved. I want to thank the public service, many folks that worked on this project with you for a very long time. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? That's carried.
Okay, I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representation are permitted on subdivision rezoning, and all persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Okay, I'll move on to item number 2, the variance.
The variance, Councillor Santos. Thank you.
Okay, I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read. Yeah, she's still in the chair, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
I move that in accordance with subsection 247 sub 3 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan, does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway, is the minimum modification of a zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property, and is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. My supporting reasons are similar to those of the subdivision and rezoning.
Thank you. All in favor?
Before I vote, I just wanted to comment that, like all the points saying there, this is a project that fits totally within where it's situated, and that's why we're going in favor of the variances.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
I move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? And that's carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And Madam Chair, could we take just a quick recess?
Sure.
And then
I appreciate
move on
it.
to the
Thank you.
next item.
Okay, we'll go for a quick 5-minute recess. Thank you.
So-
You need 7 minutes? 7 minutes. Good morning. We are back at the hearing portion of the Lord Selkirk West Kildonan Community Committee for September 5th, 2024. We're moving on to our next portion, items number 3 and 4, subdivision rezoning and variance, 473 and 475 Flora Avenue. Leah, you can start the ball rolling, please. Thank you.
Item 3 is a subdivision rezoning at 473 and 475 Flora Avenue under file DAS said 30 of 2024. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 4 is a variance at 473 and 475 Flora Avenue under file DAB 158070 of 2024D. Please note additional communications were received in support of the matter after the agenda was published, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. The process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. If you'd like a brief overview from the public service?
Yes, please. Thank you.
This is an application to rezone 473 and 475 Flora to consolidate, the properties and rezone the site from R2 residential 2-family to an RMFL residential multifamily large district for the construction of a new 4-story multifamily building and accessory social services facility to provide shelter units for at-risk youth. The site is on the northwest corner of Flora Avenue at Power Street in the Dufferin neighborhood of the Mynarski ward. There's three properties included under this application. with a combined area of 5,617 square feet. That's 473 and 475 Flora, as well as a city-owned strip of land running across the rear of these sites, abutting the back lane, which is, that site alone is 347 square feet in area and would be consolidated. Under the Complete Communities Direction Strategy, the site is within the established neighborhood mature communities policy area and is zone R2, as mentioned, residential 2-family district. The proposed development would include office space on the main floor for 24/7 on-site wraparound supports and a total of 23 one-bedroom residential dwelling units, including one fully accessible unit on the ground floor. An accessory office space is shown at the front of the building on the ground level. And Nadinaway's offices are located directly across the rear lane from this site for residents and clients to have additional supports, including outreach, education, and recreation for youth. The average lot area density proposed is 244 square feet per dwelling unit. The building will be 34 feet tall to the mid-roof line and very attractively clad with patterned masonry and wood siding. There are a total of 4 outdoor parking stalls proposed, taking access from the public lane, with the building cantilevering over those parking stalls. There's a little bit of a setback there. The proposal doesn't include visitor or accessible parking stalls at this time. The applicant has shown also bicycle parking, 6 at grade near the main building entrance, as well as a large lockable storage enclosure for bikes in the basement. The proposal requires variances associated with the lot area. So it's a substandard lot area, the density, side and rear yard setbacks, for insufficient street edge landscaping along Powers because of that reduced setback, a parking reduction, reduce parking stall length, and a variance for no accessible parking. We've recommended support of the DASD and the Public Services, also supportive of most variances, however, not the variance for no accessible parking space, for the reduced stall lengths. And I'll note that one variance was taken in error, so is shown with a strike through in the report. The variance for parking within 10 feet of a habitable window or a window to a habitable room was inaccurate. That one is, that's not a required variance for this. And we've recommended director plan approval so that the Urban Planning and Design Division would review the adjusted plans reflecting changes to parking. Thank you.
Great. Do you guys need any clarification, Councillor Edie? This is in your ward.
I just wanted to clarify the plan approval just to the director versus it going to the director and to committee. That's going to save some time on their timeline.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even if council is the meeting isn't for several weeks, once we see plans that reflect changes to parking and adequately address any concerns about garbage and parking, we can process that very quickly internally with delegated authority from the director.
Seeing no further questions, okay, we can move on to delegations.
Okay, so first is the applicant, George Vincent, speaking in support of the application.
This one, yeah.
Good afternoon, welcome.
Good morning, afternoon, I'm not sure which it is
Yeah,
yet,
it's
but
that's why I
1
said-
minute, I've got 1
Yeah.
minute to say good morning.
You have a presentation?
Yes, I
Okay.
have a presentation that was submitted
Okay,
yesterday.
it'll open and help you.
Oh, thanks, Lee.
Go ahead, so just put it up there.
Are both of you speaking at the same time?
Yes, sorry,
You'll
this
be up
is,
there.
this is Haley Connor,
Okay.
a colleague of mine from
Okay.
MMP Architects, and we're both working on this project together.
Okay, so you both need 10 minutes together is fine?
That should, that should be fine.
Okay, sounds good.
I
Thank
believe
you.
it applied under a different name, or not a different name, but a different group, but I can go with George, so.
Well, it's really up to you. If you've already signed up as a different delegate, that gives you 10 minutes and then George has 10 minutes. But if you combine your efforts, it's 10 minutes together.
Okay,
I
So
feel
what do you
I feel
prefer?
10 minutes together is sufficient
Okay.
for us. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Nancy's the representative from the Dinaway.
Yes.
Yes.
So our client, Nadinaway is present and will be speaking after us.
The green shares.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. So again, good afternoon now. My name is George Vincent. I'm the project architect of Nadinaway Transitional Housing that will be located at 473, 475 Flora Avenue. And we are here as representatives of Nadinaway and the applicants of our DSED application. The building is a 3-story walk-up. I believe may have said 4 stories earlier, but we are looking at a 3-story transitional housing building located at 475 Flora. It'll provide 23 units of studio bedrooms, one being barrier-free, each ranging from 306 to 330 in square footage, beyond the barrier-free suite, which would be approximately 460 square feet. The ground floor will be clad in masonry, as it is a robust and resilient material, which is in need for the area. It'll be representative of traditional beadwork that will actually be, the patterning will be figured out by the youth and assisted by ourselves and a artist that they'll be working in tandem with. The floors above are now looking to be a non-combustible cladding, but it will be similar to a vertical wood siding. At the rear, as explained, we are providing a covered parking with the main floor set back for applied for 4 possible stalls and an exit centered in between.
Okay. So throughout the interior, we are providing studio apartments, as George mentioned, for the youth. So what you're seeing in this image are 2 shots of the interior. There will be kind of 6 different colorways for the suites. However, all of the suites will be virtually identical aside from the barrier-free suite on the main floor, which will be larger and have the provisions for the people who require that space. Throughout the hallway, you'll notice on the right-hand photo, we have we're really trying to make these suites feel like home. A lot of the youth have not had permanent places to live. So in terms of our interior design and exterior design strategy, we are really trying to create elements of home and similar environments that the youth would find as they transition out of this space and into a more permanent living situation in a permanent apartment building. Each of the suites has operable windows, a small kitchenette with a dishwasher, range, fridge, and microwave, as well as their own washroom. So as part of the design, we are also really focused on having these youth in a safe space. So all of the provisions are ligature resistant in terms of all of the doorways, the washrooms, and as well as their storage.
Looking at moving forward in the design process, we are also interested in creating a place of safety, and so a well-lit facility. And we're looking at different examples of what could be used as maybe a beacon or a symbol and wayfinding back for the occupants to the building.
So I think that something that Nadinaway is focused on is really creating a home-like environment for the youth. So another kind of really almost poetic and nice thought is that this light will be a guide to, you can see over some of the other buildings at night, and something that really helps with wayfinding and letting the youth know in direction-wise where their home is located. You can see this from Selkirk Avenue as well. So it's a really beautiful kind of vision in the night sky, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to the site plan. So as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at placing a large portion of Carl Forster grass on the east side along Power Street. We're trying to keep as many, of course, city boulevard trees, or not as keep as many. We're keeping all of them. We will be planting 2 new trees in the front porch and providing a patio space. for the residents and the community at large. And then at the rear, we are looking at providing 4 parking spaces and with room for roll-out garbage and condenser unit. Moving to the basement, where it's a little bit more refined now, we are providing storage for all 23 residence units, as well as 23 bike storage spaces, along with laundry and drying facilities for the residents, mechanical spaces, all other amenities. Moving to the main floor, we are looking at having a very secured entryway, so a fob entry through both sets of doors with electric strikes, and then a open and warm lobby space equipped with a UTR and access to the on-site office, as well as a barrier-free suite, which again is approximately 460 square feet opposed to a typical 315 square foot unit for any individual with disabilities that may need housing. Moving on to the typical floor plan of the second and third floor is approximately 8 suites floor, ranging slightly in size and differing in color and uniqueness in that way. But yeah, it's a typical floor plan moving forward. We're very excited to be here today and to finally it's been about a year to get to this point, and we're just excited for the next steps. And so thank you very much. And
Yeah, it's been an exciting project to work on, and one that we are happy and proud to be a part of. What this space with this building does is give a lot of youth who have been marginalized or homeless in the past a place to call their home. As you can see from the plan, there is a good amount of space that these youth can, take ownership of. And as well as a place to feel proud of. So what we're really trying to do is use some elements of some traditional design, as well as give them a modern, clean, bright space that they can, call their home for any length of time that they will be there. And really feel proud and have a sense of safety and security that they have likely been missing for a large part of their lives.
to learn valuable life skills and hopefully move on to own independently.
And providing something that's desperately needed in this community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have some questions.
Yes.
So please stick around. Counselor Edie, I do have questions as well, but go ahead, Counselor Edie.
Counselor Furman, do you have any before you?
No, please do.
Actually, this facility will have a really nice backyard. There's a basketball court there.
There is, yeah, across the.
We in the community had a vision for that. So that was established. It's underutilized right now, but I think with bringing this many years, really good. Well, my first question, you must really enjoy this because the Dinaway just picked up these two lots, like resolving a problem in the neighborhood, actually, and taking them and ripping them down. So how long did you work on this project for?
Well, we've been working on this project for over a year now. So we were brought on to do the initial designs for the DAZ application, roughly last summer.
Yeah, lots of work.
Lots of work.
Well, that's good. I like the exterior concept. So, and with the windows overlooking. So one of the questions I did have, I read over the report. I didn't hear much. So you're talking about. I hate. The North End is a great place. However, we continually have what's called the garbage apocalypse, especially at the end of the month and stuff, and people dump all their crap either on your property or on the back lane or wherever. So you have provisions for rollout garbage cart then? Not cart, a garbage bin, like
Currently it would just be individual garbage bins, how we have it in our site plan as of today to have the collection at the end of the laneway there. We understand that it is a problem with garbage compiling and vandalism and different things that can occur. But we're hoping that we can find a strategy that accommodates both the urban design division and our facilities needs. But currently, as it stands, it's 3 rollout garbage bins is what we would propose now. So
I've got 14 years experience. I run the green team in along Selkirk Avenue. Garbage carts, and you're talking about 23 young people.
Yes.
That's a lot of garbage. Are
That
you
is
saying they're gonna have a garbage cart for every 2 suites or a garbage and a recycle, like? You'll be working that out with the public service, but garbage carts aren't working there. You need a minimum, probably 3 cubic meter bin to handle the amount of garbage we're talking about. Anyway, you can work that out, but I just want you to know.
yeah, no, that's well
The
taken.
garbage cart, like you tell you, like, we've got places where there's 6 units and there's 12 carts. And it's like a disaster, right? It's not working, right? So, and anyway, I'll just leave it at that. I just have concerns that somehow you need to have a plan to utilize one of those bigger bins, whether it's shared with there's 2 other Nadinaway properties there, right? So maybe you can fit a 5 cubic meter bin somewhere on one of those lots. I'm not sure. Anyway, I just wanted you to understand it. Like, I love this thing, but I just have to tell you the reality. It's like, anyway, so, and that reality will change as things improve in the neighborhood, but we have a long way to go. This is one improvement that's gonna be helped, but, so you said you have 8 studio suites on the second and third floor, so that's 16.
Sorry.
With one accessible on the main floor.
Sorry, my mistake. It is 9 a floor on the second and third floor.
9 on the second and third, and
That's
so besides the accessible, is there another?
That's correct. So on the main floor, beyond the accessible
18
street,
plus 1 is
there is
19. Right?
correct. So there are 5 suites on the first floor and one being
five,
the,
okay.
yeah, one being the accessible suite.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
No, I may have misspoke.
That's okay. Okay, I just making sure. I like the tree thing. Yeah, anyway, it is a good place to have this kind of density because again, you have like a park. Well, it's a concrete park, but it's a nice little space that's utilized by the neighborhood, right? So I think that's all I had, just, the parking. Oh, that was the other thing. So there'll be pillars holding up the second and third floors so that you have covered parking.
That's correct. So we have 2 columns at both the east and the west side, and then a beam running and spanning the length of the lot.
Mhm.
So there's no additional columns.
Say, well, it's snow, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, anyway, okay, and you're not planting anything along towers, right?
We are.
I think there's 2 existing trees there already.
Yes, there are on the boulevard existing trees, and we won't be touching those. We are planting 51 segments of Carl Forester grass along the building, adjacent directly to the building.
I think that's all I have. I have questions for in the way. I think that's all I have right now.
I do have a follow-up question to Councillor Edie's question about the parking. I'm just looking at the variance. And there are a couple of things that are being struck out, right, at the request of yourself. Is that correct?
No, I don't believe so.
It says no accessible parking spaces instead of one spaces, and it's like struck out.
Well, that would be struck out by the urban design.
They asked for the variance.
Right, so you are okay with those amendments, so slight amendments?
We are aware of the amendments and we are we are okay. We are able to make adjustments to the parking plan in order to provide an accessible suite. So we're hopefully we are eager to have our project move forward and with approval, and we will like to make an alignment.
Just want to get some clarity on that.
Yep, no problem.
I think my questions will be for anyway, it's more talking about the at-risk youth, so I think they're better at answering those questions.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you very much.
you. So the next registered in support is Shanley Scott. Shanley and Jackie, are you coming up together? Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Hi, welcome. So I see there's two of you here and you're gonna speak together. Okay, you have 10 minutes, and if you can please introduce yourself for the public as well for us here in the gallery.
I'm Shanley Scott, I'm the executive director.
And I'm Jackie Stubbs. I am the Director of Finance, and I've worked in Adenoway going on close to 20 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we kind of just wanted to talk about how we arrived here today, the realities in our community, and really the need for a building and a resource such as this. And I'm sure you're all well versed in the statistics regarding homelessness in our city. I mean, there's a wide range of statistics that are kind of floating around, but a really broad variance of between 1,500 and 4,000 people that are experiencing homelessness. But regardless of which end of the spectrum we kind of land on, it still doesn't address individuals that may be couch surfing or just staying in random places for short periods of time. There are things that are really contributing to this really tragic issue, including both lack of supply and also rising costs. We noticed really great increases in prices during the COVID-19 pandemic, which really haven't kind of totally settled out yet. And one of the biggest concerns that we're interested in addressing is the stark reality in Manitoba with kids in care. And we know that just as Indigenous peoples, we are forming the basis of those high numbers. It's primarily Indigenous children. When they age out of the child welfare system, they often end up in a cycle of homelessness. We also have the added concern of young people that end up in institutions like jails or psychiatric facilities and hospitals, and then have no safe place to call home when they're released from those institutions. We also have the reputation in Winnipeg, or the reality in Winnipeg, of having the highest Indigenous population in Canada, and that needs to be noted. We know that homelessness, particularly Indigenous homelessness, is a product of the breakdown of healthy Indigenous relationships. And that occurred because of colonization, land displacement, disconnection from identity, culture, linguicide, domicide. We know that our youth particularly have taken the brunt of all of these issues based on the residential school experience, the 60s scoop,
and contemporary genocide and colonization that still continues through the child welfare system. So we know, as an Indigenous youth serving organization, as Jackie said, she's been around for 20 years, but it didn't always existed for 30. So we know what our community needs. We have other resources right within the community on kind of like adjacent and behind that serve our youth and offer long-term care and also just emergency resources and need for basic necessities like hygiene products, food, and so on. So we looked at what's missing in the continuum of care that we're currently providing and realized that this project is the need, something that would act as a more long-term sort of stay for young people embedded in Indigenous ways of knowing and being. So our elders went into ceremony to retrieve the name. The name chosen was Undying, which means our home. And our architects have spoken to that in the design of the building, that it's to create a home-like atmosphere where children and youth have a place that is safe, that feels safe, and that meets their needs in a way that have never been met before. Councillor Edie spoke about the reason, in part, why we chose the location, being that there were 2 derelict properties that were being used for nefarious purposes. And right across the street is an elementary school. Elementary, I guess, goes up to grade 8, Nichimakwa. And our young people on their way to school had to cross that property or at least walk by it. It was considered a trap house, gang activity, exploitation, drug poisonings. All of those things were a daily occurrence, not to mention fires that were being started in those 2 structures, not homes. And so that was part of the thought about the whys. We also already talked about the fact that we have other locations right within that area. And then, of course, the fact that we have so many young people aging out of care into homelessness. So we felt like it was the perfect location to build a building which would be attached to all the resources that we currently have. And community is really important to Indigenous people, relationship. So we follow a kinship model of care where our young people, there are family members, or their aunties, or their uncles, or their grandparents. And not that we take the place of their own biological families, but we have a responsibility. Our laws tell us that we have to care for our home. So this gives us the added ability to do that. I'm a mom. I have two daughters, and I think about when, they magically turned 18, it didn't mean that they no longer needed me. Just as I, as a growing woman, still need my mom. And so that's what this model, our home, is going to do. It's not going to just be a physical building. It's going to be a safety. It's going to be a family, a community that serves one another. So we're really excited about this project and the prospect for providing care at a very different level and individualized care, because no 2 people are the same. We have different needs, we've had different experiences. And so plans will be developed for our young people based on who they are, where they're at, and what they need as an individual to meet their full potential. I do just want to make a comment with respect to accessibility and in another life, I was the manager of the provincial wheelchair program, wheelchair services and parking permit. And so I'm a strong proponent of the need for accessibility. But I think we need to also address the issue of what does accessibility mean? And our young people not having access to a safe home is the first step. Accessibility. That to me is a paramount concern.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to draw attention to the building across the back lane, our Tina Safe Haven. And the resources that we have there that our youth in this new apartment building are able to access. So we've got cultural supports, we have health, we have mental health supports. We have a specialized team that work with our young people on addictions and exploitation. We provide supper every day, we have snacks, we have lunch. So they have access to what the services that we are currently providing. And those wraparound supports that they're going to need. And then I know, Ross, you brought up the garbage, you and I have dealt with garbage gates before, so I completely understand it.
It's every day.
Yeah, and you know, we do, you know, obviously people come to the north end and they dump their garbage, that's a well-known fact. And we do right now have services 2, maybe 3 times a week. We do have a dumpster that is right behind Tina Safe Haven. And if we need to, you know, to make things work, if we need to add extra days of service, then that's something that, you know, we would definitely look at to support this apartment building. Do you have anything else?
I just wanted to say, we feel like this project aligns with the strat plan, the council strat plan, particularly key theme 3 and item number 3.4, affordable social housing through partnerships with the private sector and nonprofit.
Do you need a few more minutes to finish, or are you guys finished? Yeah, I think we'll have questions for you.
Questions?
Okay. I wasn't too sure if you were done your presentation, but you're good. Okay, thank you. Yes, I believe I do have one question, but go ahead, Councillor Edie.
Yeah, I have first of all, I just want to thank both of you. So I met with you and we talked about that awful structure, the 2 structures actually, but and I was so I think I'm glad you found the resources to purchase that property and tear that stuff down. And because it was a blight on the immediate neighborhood, and it was a great thing that you did. And I really appreciate that. I guess the first question was interested in, so with this new home for young Indigenous kids, although they're young adults by the time we're going to be going here, how is that different than your 14 unit adjacent? I in about 2011 worked with a young Indigenous youth. He's very quiet, very nice young man. He was working, helping us keep Salker clean and everything. But so what's the difference between that 14, that unit, and this one?
That's a good question. So that is considered kind of like second stage housing. So kids are still in care. They're under the care of Child and Family Services. And so they're learning some basic life skills. And, you know, to be able to transition into community, let's face it, not everyone's ready. Even with an extension of care up to the age of 21, which is a possibility, they may still need additional help due to the trauma that they've experienced and just the realities of their life. And so this would be, in simple terms, kind of like a third stage to give that extra help and support. So they're not tied to Child and Family Services anymore. That is gone, but they still need support and help. And that's what we were finding was a missing link. So kids might go through second stage, or as we call it, Manitou, Tonka, Wayate TP. Big Old Nation lives here, but they're not ready. They're not ready to live on their own. And even if they were to secure an apartment, they don't have the skills necessary to maintain it. So then they are in a very short time homeless or unhoused again.
Okay, actually, you're saying 30 years, that's good. I know one of the first directors, Sonia Provo Durbecker, was there, I don't know, sometime in the 90s, a long time ago. Very activist had to be to get youth off the street and keep them safe, right? So wow, there's so much we could talk about, but again, I see this a big improvement for our neighborhood there. And I think of it as my neighborhood too. How are you doing in terms of financing? So this is pretty well still just it's not a really detailed design, right? Like, how are you doing for funding for the project?
So we've secured a great deal of the funding. Some of it's very time limited, so that's always a concern for us. There's funding that will have to be expended by March 31st, so time is of the essence. But on a bigger note from our perspective is that every day that passes where young people don't have housing is one more day closer to death. That's the stark reality in our community. So yeah, money plays a part in it, but human life is the bigger part.
Okay. I just want you to know, I don't know where you're gonna be at a certain point, but I've been trying to afford very little money called Community Incentive Grant. I knew this project's coming and the North End Women's Center's trying to get a project going as well, but very needed, as you know, as well, right? But so the main floor, there's a lot of common space here for the young ones.
There is some common space on the main floor. There's also the private office spaces. What we've found in working with our community members is that we need to bring resources to them. I would like to say that racism is a thing of the past, but that would be an outright lie. It's alive and well, and sometimes I would say flourishing. And so for kids, I'm using the expression kids too, because I have growing daughters, and I mean no disrespect, but they need access to services that they can't receive in community. So the idea was that if we had office spaces that, different service providers could come to them and kind of meet their needs. And eventually, hopefully, we build capacity within systems to address things in a different way, in the way that our young people need them to be addressed. We often hear the words, you need to comply, you need to conform, and you need to cooperate. If it were only that easy, none of these resources would be needed, but that's not how it is. Okay. So, yeah, that's
CIGP fundable space. I just, I don't know about for all that, but that's kind of space is CIGP. So I'm just putting it out there. I just wanted to speak to the accessibility. I understand there's all kinds of different levels of accessibility, right? But, I think of that young man who was shot and paralyzed for the rest of his life at the corner of Salter and Selkirk, who I visited in the hospital. He's old enough now, he could be one of those people. I know he's using a wheelchair. Because that was his sentence with that bullet. He's maybe, I don't know where he's at, but maybe he's in a space where he might need an accessible parking spot to pull in so that he can work with some of the younger kids to help him through the kind of things that he had to go through, right? So I just want to leave that with you, okay? Because it's not necessarily who's living there, it's also who's going to be providing supports. And I also hate to tell you, well, you probably know this, but I learned this a long time ago, helping somebody at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. The highest percentage of disabilities exists within the Indigenous population. So I'll leave it at that.
Any other further questions? I do have one question. Thank you for coming out and explaining your project. Greatly appreciated. You talked about a little bit on the topic of at-risk youth. And you talked about kids in care and kids aging out of care. So can you help me with a little bit of the definition? Because my understanding that definition kind of changes sometimes as well as the age, right? What we've noticed during the pandemic, there was a gap of about 2 years, 3 years, where now that definition of the age has actually increased. So before it was, my understanding was like 21, and now they're changing that definition to 25 years is what's now being considered aging out of care. Is that true to today's standard? Can you talk a little bit more about that? What that definition is now, what that age is now?
And there, you're right, there has been conversation. There's no change in legislation currently.
Okay.
The age is a maximum of 21.
Okay.
And yeah, that's often, not enough time.
Yeah.
For young people. Our mandate currently is, we serve youth of ages 11, more frequently 13, but 11 to 24, so up until the 25th birthday. With this project, we've talked about leeway with respect to that too. And unlike other supportive and transitional housing that seems to have a time limit attached where you can be here for a year, or you can be here for 18 months, and then you've got to move along. One of the things that we recognized again is that no two people are the same. And so we didn't want to impose time limits. It's based on, what's the need. If there's never an ability to live independently, it's probably not the right resource if you need that level of support. But maybe you need a little bit more support.
Are you able to, at a high level, give me stats or numbers of kids currently aging out of care between, maybe do you have a population or a stat of the population between the ages of 13 to 18 and then the 21 to 24? Do you happen to know?
I don't have those stats with me, but it's a growing number. I can definitely
Okay,
share
so
that.
then you must have a waiting list. How about that? Like, what's your waiting list for kids? Because this is not your first location, right? You do have another location.
So our locations are tied to child welfare,
Yep.
with the exception of Tina's Safe Haven, which is a safe space. It's not a home. So really the numbers from Tina's Safe Haven that access safe space or a place to stay overnight generally ranges from 20 to 30 kids a night. We know that this resource is a drop in the bucket for what our city needs. We know that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 23 kids for that one location.
And it's not the same kids. Yeah. That's,
You do
that's
see
on a
a
nightly
change. Okay,
basis.
that's just on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
Okay. Kids, you're saying 11 to 24?
Yeah, so typically it's 18 to 24 that stay overnight there. And the
Okay.
reason for that is we have an emergency placement resource for young people 11 to 17.
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody came to Tina's Safe Haven that was young, we would be saying, let's look at the safe house. It's a safer environment because it's such a broad age range, and we're finding our young adults that are unhoused, 18 to 24, often have challenges that could have a negative impact on our littles, as we call them, Yeah.
Right, good. Thank you. I appreciate you kind of expounding that scope. I think that's important to kind of understand the need that's out there and some of the gaps we need to fill, right? And you're obviously doing that. So thank you for doing that and taking the time today. I don't have any other questions. Do you guys have any other questions? No? Okay, we will move on to any other delegations. Thank you.
There's no one else registered in support of this application, just confirming that no one else in the gallery wishes to speak in support. There's no one registered in opposition, no one in the gallery in opposition.
support and then right.
Yeah, it's very quick.
My name is Lauren Lang. I'm a planner with WSP, but I'm here speaking in support of the project as a friend of Nidinaway and Winnipeg citizen. And I just want to commend Nidinaway for taking the initiative to demolish the existing buildings that were on site and purchase them and to completely change the environment and dynamic of that corner and to improve the safety. And we all know that development is hard and they've been doing this on their own to meet the needs of the community. And I strongly support the project in meeting this urgent housing need in our city. And speaking to the kinship model of care that Shanley spoke to, I've seen that with my own two eyes that the youth trust them. And they come to them at all hours of the day. So I'm excited for this project and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And thank you for coming out to support. Right. So there's no one else in the gallery registered or looking to register to speak in opposition. Confirming that there's no one in the gallery with respect to the application looking to speak. Great. So there are questions for the public service.
Do you guys have any questions for the public service? I do. I just need some clarity because I'm very confused on the parking situation, but I'll let you go ahead if you want to go first, Councilor Beatty, since it's in your ward.
You can ask parking questions.
Okay, so, yeah, so help me understand so Urban Planning and Design Division recommends approval as modified of the application. Item F is 4 parking spaces instead of 28, which is fine, but there's a deletion. So I'm trying to understand in my head what's happening here. You put it on, but then we're striking it out. So I kind of need to understand why we're striking it out, why it's in there, and what discussions are being happening. The end result, like what's the end result going to happen with the quote accessible parking spaces and accessory parking area? Like, I'm just trying to understand what that means.
Okay, so we are required to list out all the requested variances in the report. And I'll add there was 2B for parking located close to a window to a habitable room. That was one that was posted on site and we realized after it was already posted that it was taken in error, so it's shown with a strike through. Anything that we're not supportive of, we've also shown with a strike through, which in this case is the variance for no accessible parking instead of 1 space. And for 2A, which is parking space lengths varying from 16.8 feet to 18 feet instead of the required 23 feet.
Okay.
So we've recommended rejection of those two.
Just to clarify, item G that's struck out,
Yes,
you're not supporting that.
we're not.
It's
supporting
less
that.
than
So you
20
would
feet.
like that.
It's less
We
than
would,
20
we
feet.
would want to see an accessible stall. It's something that, especially with the universal design policy, that we really try to.
You've
keep to
outlined
that.
that in your bullets underneath.
Right, yes.
So you would like to see an accessible, so we would unstrike it essentially if we agree with the public service.
Well, we're not approving that variance.
No, you would, if you're agreeing with the public service, then it would be, perhaps, our clerk could explain how it would show.
You would just concur. So no, if you concur with the public service to not allow 1G, right, then you just keep it as is.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's similar for 2A and B. Well, B is an error. You're saying it's an error.
It was taken in error, so it's a variance that we're not proceeding with.
Okay, but 2A is the one that you, same thing, are not agreeing to.
We're not agreeing to.
So it needs to remain strucken, I guess.
As is, unless there's interest in modifying that.
Just
If
remove
I
it.
can elaborate, sorry, Councilor?
I can amend it by removing it. Right?
You could amend,
what
following
it-
following the publication of the report, we had some discussion with the applicant, with the designer. talking about what could work for that parking area, looking ahead to plan approval and how to remedy the situation. And it looks like they could make it work with 20 feet. So that's something the committee could
That's the
consider.
minimum that you, that the,
That's the minimum we'd support
that
for
is
parking
that's
stalls.
the minimum that you would, admin would support, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So that if you were to amend that, then you could say, you could remove the strike through and amend the recommendation or amend with your approval
To allow variance of,
to allow parking stall lengths of 20 feet instead.
Okay, so what would be stricken out is the 16.8 feet to 18 feet language and replace it with 20 feet. Is that what you're saying here?
Yep.
So this part, okay,
still a variance, but.
still a variance, okay.
So that gives them some flexibility.
Do we say minimum 20 feet, maximum 20 feet, or did you just say
Minimum
20?
20 feet.
Minimum. That's, you gotta make sure you put that word minimum, okay. Okay, thank you. I just needed.
I
to
did have
understand
one
that.
thing to clarify. So on the subdivision, there's no changes, right? So the subdivision itself will go, like if we don't amend it or anything, it will go directly to Executive Policy Committee on the subdivision, right?
There is one tiny change.
I'm sorry, what?
There's one small change that was a typo, my apologies. That was for, sorry, I have it. I have it here, recommendation to the rezoning and subdivision application. The recommendations, state that the developer shall meet all terms and conditions as outlined in Schedule A, which should have actually said Schedule B. So very small change, but it is an amendment.
Well, that's an error. That's an error in the report. Why would you call that an? And for that reason, it won't go directly to EPC. That's, so this subdivision has to pay the price of an error in the.
In the end, it doesn't, it's unfortunate that it's an extra administrative layer, but it wouldn't actually save time.
Pardon me?
Because the EPC date is already set, it wouldn't save any time.
There's not a whole lot of time savings in this case.
It just,
Why, when's P and D?
Just-
Is this gonna go to P and D? When is that? When's that meeting?
P and D is on September 13th and then.
Okay, all right, okay. All right then, okay. That answers my question.
No
So I
further
have to
question?
move this as amended then, right?
Yes.
All right. Well,
Yeah, we have to wait. Okay, so you're good, Counselor Edie. Those 2 points make sense. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're gonna ask the applicant to come back and speak in rebuttal to the information you have heard. And no new information.
No new information. In rebuttal, I would just want to thank you all for your time and the support of councillor and committee. We have no additional information or anything to say at this point. Sorry, in rebuttal to the, yeah, we've been having conversations, Cindy and I have been having conversations. And as mentioned, we may, we have potential plans to fall in line with the division's ideas of accessible parking and 20-foot variance. So we're good on that front.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I will entertain motions, Counselor Edie.
yes, Madam
Would you like?
Chairperson. All right,
I'll give you time.
I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All those in favor?
I
That's carried unanimously.
move that the receipt of public representations be included.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried unanimously.
I move it would be that the recommendation of the public service be concurred in as amended.
Yes, you could move to concur with an amendment just to change that Schedule A to Schedule B in recommendation 2.
Yeah, so I'm gonna move it, I'm gonna concur with it as amended.
And forwarded to,
I move that the recommendation of public service be concurred in as amended and forwarded to the Standing Committee on Property and Development.
Okay, do you want to give your supporting reasons, Councillor Edie?
Yeah, I will in a sec. Okay, sorry, I didn't read it all, but. Again, you heard me speak about it. This is such a big improvement that act to the local neighborhood there that is actually going to help. A lot of the young people that, if you spend time around those neighborhoods, you run into these young people and they need opportunities to do the things that are going to help them build a better life for themselves. And yeah, so so removing it actually fits really nice, I think. I love the concept of what the exterior will look like. I think that'll have a great place. I do have a memory in my mind what that intersection looks like, because before Nijimako I worked at Aberdeen School back in 1984. Was the last day I worked there. Anyway, this is just a great project that fits right in with what we need here. And this is actually in the Dufferin neighborhood, and it fits in really, really, really good. So those are my supporting reasons.
Any other ones?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to add, I really appreciated those that spoke in delegation. This is a very special project, really needed, and it really enhances the great work that In a Way already does in the area. And it's going to support our youth, supporting them to live independently through your support. So this is wonderful, wonderful project. Thank you.
Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried unanimously.
I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
So
Okay, I
committees
gotta
need
get
a
it.
representation on this matter that will not proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning, and all persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Great. Move on to the variance, Councillor Edie.
Just bear with me here. I've got to pull up the variance here. Now. And just to confirm again, we're just leaving what's crossed out in there. And so therefore,
And amending 2A.
yeah,
You're gonna
2A,
unstruck it and you're gonna do 2A parking space length varying minimum 20 feet
that's good.
instead of 23 feet. I don't know the
Right.
meters. Okay,
That is correct. So you have that wording, Madam Clerk,
Yes, I do.
because I ain't gonna read it. Okay. I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
all those in favor?
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I move that in accordance with subsection 247(3) of the City of Winnipeg's charter, the variance is consistent, or is that right?
Correct.
Yep, is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. Does not create a substantial effect on the amenity, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway. Is the minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property? B, is compatible with the area in which the property affected is situated. And my supporting reasons are the same. I don't think I moved the amendment till the next motion.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor? That's carried.
I move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service not be concurred in.
Would you like to concur, Counselor, with an amendment?
Oh, sorry, I would like, not con- I'm sorry, how does he phrase that?
Okay, so I think I understand your intention, Counselor, but please feel free to correct me. So you'd be concurring in the recommendation of the public service with an amendment.
As amended, yeah.
So just to confirm, you're going to keep one.
So we're
G
confirming the
second.
DAB as amended, right? Okay.
Sure, and the amendment is that for two A, instead of striking it out, it shall remain, but with an amended wording to say, for the establishment of an accessory parking area to permit parking space lengths of minimum 20 feet, 6.09 meters.
Yep, that's correct. That is it. So moved, Madam Chairperson.
Okay, good. All those in favor? It's carried.
I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Right, that ends our hearing portion. Just looking to my council colleagues, you want to move right into reports?
Can I just take a quick thing?
You need a break?
Yeah, just.
Sure. 5-minute break. We'll be back to finish off our report. Thank you.
4 minutes and 38 seconds.
Good afternoon. We are back now. We just finished the hearing portion. Now we need to go back into the reports. We did deal with item number 9 already earlier this morning, and we're just going to be dealing with items number 1 to 8.
Yeah.
A few of them are pretty easy and quick. So if we can just zoom by them, I know all of us haven't had lunch yet, so we'll do this as quickly and
So,
efficiently as
Madam
possible.
Chairperson,
Go ahead.
report number 1
Yes.
is, I think it's the 6-month summary of delegated
Yes.
authority method of allocating per capita.
Yes.
And the report's been published for quite some time. I shall move it.
Okay,
A lot of good work. We support a lot of good organizations here. So.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried unanimously. Items 2, 3, 4, and 5 are just ratifying some occasional liquor permits. So if someone can do the no cheat codes production. Item number 2.
Yes, so items 2 and 3, sorry, 2, 3, and 4 are all occasional liquor
Can
permits.
we move them together?
If you wish.
Can we do that?
So moved.
Okay, Councillor Sherman moves 2, 3, 4 all together. All
Aye.
those in favor? Aye. That's carried unanimously. Okay, item 5, extension of hours. My apologies. We have, Councillor Edie, you can move that extension of hours and be just ratifying that one.
Okay, I move to extend the hours for, I'm sorry.
Fairmont, Winnipeg, it's already been done. The event's over.
Yeah, I move to extend the hours for the Fairmont Winnipeg event.
Favor?
Aye, that's the one that was indoors, right?
Yes, yes. Item number 6, traffic study, intersection of McPhillips Street and Court Avenue. This report is to be received as information, however. Councillor Sharma, I believe this is in your ward, and we do not have anybody from the public administration here at this time, do we?
Not
To
the Public
speak.
Works, no.
Okay,
Not today. I do appreciate the report being here, but I think we need I would like a little bit more time to have a look at it. And we have mentioned that, I guess we can request a member of the public service to come to speak with it. We've done that before, I believe.
Showed up
Yeah,
before.
or we can speak with him offline. So in the meantime, we'll lay it over to the September meeting. September 29th, is it? 24th. Okay. And if you could we reach out to David Patman and ask him to connect with the ward council on this? Prior to the meeting?
I can advise him of that, sure.
You know, I talk about every night, so.
He'll come, he's not.
okay, all those in favor of layover to the September meeting, all those
Aye.
in favor? Okay, that's carried. Item number 7, plan approval of Goodman Drive. I believe there was some submissions after the fact, and we will require some suspension of the rules to add those in, but we'll get a summary from the administration first, please, and thank you.
Okay. This item was laid over on June 25th to discuss and revise visitor parking, as it was identified that there's no on-street parking available on Goodman Drive. So what's been revised is each unit would have, or actually it's labeled so that each unit has a single car garage as well as a 10-foot wide driveway. The driveway lengths have been revised, so some of them were between 16 and 18 feet before. Most driveways are 20 feet now, with a few corner ones, I think 5 of them, 4 of them, identified as at least 18 feet in length. So that provides, in effect, additional parking, as well as the 2 snow storage areas have been revised. There's still a snow dump area on the west side of the site, but those areas have been revised to provide additional visitor parking. So there's an increase of, it's of 10 visitor stalls.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was a good proposal that came forward last meeting, but now it's even better because there were some revisions made. It was necessary to put some additional on-site parking into this proposal, as our planner just mentioned. And that's been done. The driveways have been lengthened. The architect had alluded to that so that cars no longer will be overhanging into the public right of way. That's super important. And we have accessible parking as well. So this is a much better proposal than what we saw last meeting. And I want to thank the architect, Joel from Affinity Architecture. The developer is Discovery Homes. A good collaboration with our planner, and I'm happy with what we see here before us. So I'll move that well, first of all, I think we'll have to ask for suspension of the rules to have a new report.
Yes, I believe the planner has already circulated a revised report, which is dated August 28th, and revised plans to the committee members as well. Okay, so just a suspension.
All those in favor of suspension?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
That was Councillor Sherman?
Yes.
Perfect.
And I'll move that we concur in the new report as presented. Madam Chair.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Right, moving on to item number 8, plan approval 2150 McPhillips Street. I believe we did have someone in delegation show up kind of halfway, but then logged off, but Councillor Sharma, I'll leave this to you. This is in your ward. Do you need to hear from
Some
delegation?
concerns. I
Did you have concerns?
didn't know you had some concerns with this one.
That was this one that's the first time it's coming forward.
What is it?
I don't know why the delegation isn't with us. If they listen to the tape later or listening now, I do suggest that whenever they have proposals like this, that they contact the ward counselor. That would be myself or any of us if it's in our wards. But I think what we have before us is pretty straightforward. I have spoken to our planner, Simi Perez, if we could just get a summary from you.
Absolutely. It's an application for plan approval due to renovations to an existing automobile dealership, McPhillips Nissan. The
So
applicant.
this is just north of Superstore in that area.
That's right,
Yeah.
yes. So they're proposing to update the exterior cladding materials. It's the same material in a different darker gray color palette, as well as updating their fascia signage. And they're relocating the front door from the corner of the building in the north corner to the center of the front facade. And just giving it some treatment around the door so it's a bit more prominent. In addition, they're adding 4 electrical charging stations to the site in place of 4 regular parking stalls. And they're extending the existing concrete walkway that's in front of the store for the columnar signage in front of those EV charging stations. And that summarizes all of their changes.
Thank you very much for your work on this. So I'd like to move, Madam Chair, that we concur in this proposal. As we just heard, the design allows the existing business to modernize. And it's a contemporary color scheme that they're proposing in the signage. The green element is exciting. They're adding the EV charging stations. And hopefully it encourages buyers to consider that a sustainable option.
Great. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye, that's carried unanimously. All right, we're done with item number 9. Yes, one more adjournment.
Or Madam
There's one-
Chairperson.
Is there one more? No, we did item 9 already.
Oh, we did.
We're good. So adjournment at 1:16. Right on.
Boom, boom, boom.
6 minutes.